Good evening and welcome to Embracing Diversity, an online diversity initiative. Tonight, our discussion is racial trauma real? Our discussion is hosted and facilitated or moderated by Reverend Vicki L. Hughes, DEI facilitator and consultant. Now, we'll turn this over to Vicki.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Embracing Diversity. This is our dialogue for this evening. We are on bi-weekly Wednesdays, and we dialogue about a different topic each time, and I'll tell you our topic for tonight in just a second. I would like to ask everyone, viewers as well as panelists, if you would please share this live stream video on your Facebook pages at this time right now. So, we are a group of everyday people. We are talking about difficult topics, having difficult conversations, and we would love for several people to see us dialoguing together. We are a diverse group. Each time different panelists come on. We are Black, white, Latina, Native American, Asian American, female, male, transgender. There are so many of us who are in this pool of panelists, and then including myself as moderator. And again, we want people to hear us and see us interacting with each other and disagreeing with each other and affirming each other. So please share at this time. Tonight, our topic will be, is racial trauma real? Yesterday afternoon, we all know that between 4:30 and 5 p.m. approximately, we awaited the Derek Chauvin verdict. We also all know that he was found guilty on 3 counts. But right before that, around the same time when we were waiting to hear that verdict, Ma'Khia Bryant was shot and killed by a police officer in Columbus, Ohio. She was 16 years old. For me, just to share my thoughts, within a 30-minute period, I was driving to work. I worked a second shift, so I was working a late second shift last night. As I was driving to work, I was listening to D.L. Hughley's show. So before I even heard him talk about the Chauvin verdict, I heard him talk about how Ma'Khia Bryant had been killed. So in a 30-minute period, I felt sadness, anger, and then felt joy and happiness over a verdict. That to me is just too much racial trauma, just trauma period, too much emotion to experience in 30 minutes. But it happens to people of color all the time. We experience victories and then we hear of tragedies. Tonight, again, I want to pose the question, is racial trauma real? That's our topic for tonight. We're going to share our experiences. You will also learn about the causes of racial trauma, the effects of racial trauma on our brains and our bodies. And we're going to talk about some coping mechanisms. I have a therapist on tonight, a few chaplains, including myself, and people from various other professions. And we've all had different experiences, different upbringing. So we're gonna chat tonight. So let me quickly tell you, give you actually a few definitions that I compiled off of the internet. So what is racial trauma? Racial trauma experienced by many people of color is the cumulative effects of racism on an individual's mental and physical health. It is linked to feelings of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and other health problems. It refers to the mental and emotional injury caused by encounters with racial bias and ethnic discrimination, racism, and hate crimes. So let's talk. I'm going to pose this question to my panelists, and any of you all can start. I have several panelists on here with me tonight. What was your reaction to the Derek Chauvin trial verdict of the 3 guilty counts? Who wants to start?
Well, I can start.
Okay, go ahead, Erin. Chaplain
Hello,
Bennett.
hello, my name is Erin. I'm a hospice chaplain. I am 35 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, I was at work and all day I was looking through my phone waiting to hear the verdict, and I didn't get anything yet, and I didn't get anything until I got off work, and my best friend texted me saying, "Thank you, God," and I was like, well, of course we thank him always, but what happened? What happened? And she said they found him guilty on all 3 charges. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And I felt like, okay, this is just a stepping stone. Immediately I was happy, but immediately I thought, think of all the ones that got away with murder. This is just one that they finally got. Quite honest, they should have made an example out of George Zimmerman a long time ago. George Zimmerman got away with murder, and so many have gotten away with it. But I'm so thankful that, first of all, how could they not find this man guilty with all that evidence in front of their faces? And I'm like, I don't know the jury. I don't know the race of the jury. I think it was a mixture. There's some black and some white and some biracial, I think. But I'm like, how could they not see the human side of George in the videos they showed? And my heart just went out to George and his family. And straight up, I'm just going to say this and then I'll be done. Straight up, we saw a modern day lynching of George Floyd on television. And you cannot see that and not say that Derek isn't guilty. And those other officers are guilty as well. But I'm glad they got Derek. And so I'm happy. But we still have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Before I move on to the next person, are you still there? I wanted to ask you, since, okay, so that we found out that George Floyd was murdered on May 25th of last year, 2020. So since then, before you heard this verdict yesterday, how do you feel like your life has changed in the last year? I mean, how has seeing his murder affected you?
Like we don't matter. We march, we hold signs, and for his murder to happen in broad daylight and all these witnesses, and that Derek to have his knee on his neck and have his hands in his pocket as if I don't care about this man's life. I don't care that he has children. I don't care he has a family. He's this big black guy and I got my knee on his neck. So how it affected me is really nothing much has changed. There's still hatefulness. There's still racism. And it makes me, straight up, I don't even trust law enforcement. I don't trust them. If I call them for help, I believe that they will probably shoot me instead of the bad guy that I'm calling them for help for. So I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. So that's how it's changed me.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Aaron. Let me go to our black male. Are you still on one of our two black males? Let me call on Liddell. Um, what was your reaction yesterday? And then I mean, you can answer that first, or you can answer this other question I have for you as a black male. Since May 25th of last year, what has gone through your mind when you've been out and about? I mean, has your fear of police changed, or did it change, or was it about the same?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Or both of those questions.
Okay, can you talk up a little bit?
Yep, let me turn it up a little bit.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for both of the questions.
Okay.
So my response yesterday to the verdict, actually, I don't have any clear language. So I mean, I think deep inside, I wanted to take a moment and celebrate accountability. That someone was held accountable for murder, for killing Black and brown bodies, for killing George Floyd. But the thing that kept coming up for me as I was sitting with the word that is close to joy, but not not joy. Well, was this hesitation to not allow it to move into like this. This is not. It's not justice. And even like the way that I think about what justice even means within the context of the United States, primarily. I don't know if it exists. I don't think justice exists within the context of the structure that we live in, like demands a kind of injustice, demands oppression. So I was actually, yesterday, I was sitting in the hopelessness of it all. Like the court system doesn't have space for justice and healing to exist within it. So the part that I'm trying to be with is like, if this is hopeless, how can I be with the pain and trauma of it all, and still be able to claim my own power within it? More Black people are going to be killed. I believe that is true. It's painful and scary as hell, particularly with the fact that I have a child. And how do I raise him within that, knowing that that is true? So yeah, I think for me yesterday, I was mostly sitting with the kind of joy that wanted to come up, but I couldn't be with it because I know what kind of country I live in. And I see it for what it is. And it's bullshit, if I'm being honest. If that's the language I want to use. And the part that I've been sitting with since last year around, so I'm a former police officer. A lot of people don't know that. Hell yeah, I'm terrified of police officers. In some ways, I have to be, and it'd be insane for me not to be. Like, they have a gun. If they put that gun down, I think it will equalize the engagement, because I'm a big brother. I'm a big country brother. So they put the gun down, we're gonna move some trees. But they have a gun, and that gun can kill me. And I know, and I've worked with, I worked in my own department, but in my department, I knew and experienced the terror and racism, deep racism in many of the police officers. So and I know they have a gun and they're scared, that is danger automatically. So I've held that I'm scared of these individuals, and I'm not gonna let that fear define how I move about in the world. And I think that's kind of how I'm being with it. Like, yeah, I'm skeptical of you, and I feel fear, but I'm not gonna allow that fear to have the last word.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I learned something new about you, Liddell, and this is to the viewers. Liddell he is a former police officer. I didn't know that, but we met in seminary. He is an ordained minister. He's very involved with social justice. So I thank you for sharing your views. And he is also a current chaplain. So he talked about, how his sitting with things and being. That's what we learn in clinical pastoral education, and how to be chaplains and ministers, period, to just sit with things and just really appreciate and know your emotions. So thank you very much, Liddell. Could I hear from Vernon? Another Black male on here. How have you felt over the last almost year since George Floyd's murder, and what do you think about the verdict yesterday?
Okay. Over the last year, I guess as I've seen incidents continue to happen, I'm sort of like Liddell. I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. This is continuing to happen. And as he put it, I'm a big country brother too. And I've been stopped. I live in Metro Atlanta. Where I live borders Gwinnett and DeKalb counties. And both of our counties' police departments are notorious. And we've had a few cases here. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, white female officer pulled me over in Gwinnett County, something with my tags, but I could sort of sense her apprehension. And I had my puppy in the car. But yes, officer, no officer. I explained to her what was going on with the plates. And she ran the plates and she saw they were valid, and the thing began to rise up in me, well, why did you stop me? Just sort of randomly, you just said, okay, I see this guy, and let me just run the plates. There wasn't anything unusual with my car. I mean, it was dirty, had pollen on it, but so it started to rise up in me, but I tamped it down, just to get through. But I mean, literally, I'm looking in my rearview mirror. She's got one hand getting my information, and she's got her other hand back toward her weapon, back toward a service weapon. And I'm like, okay. But I was at a Quick Trip, so that would have been plenty of witnesses. But those kind of things bother me. And over the year, I have a 20-year-old son who's in a junior college in South Georgia, about 35 miles below Columbus. And I pray for him every night because I know what potentially could happen to a young Black man. And he's got a little bit of mouth because he's an athlete also, and he's a good student. So that's been my concern. And as far as the verdict, it's a beginning. I'll take it. But there's a lot more that needs to be done. Total reform of the system. Tear it down, destroy it, rebuild it, paradigm shift, of the highest order is in order. And one of the things that these things have helped me do, as you know, Vicky, I'm a writer also. So just last night, I sat sort of half sleep and half not and wrote a piece, just, based off of the verdict. So, these things do give me motivation and inspiration to write as well. And that's part of my healing, part of my catharsis, putting it on paper, and actually being able to publicly present, because that helps heal my hurt.
Where is Fearless Leader?
Yeah, oh,
It looks okay. It looks like I was muted. Vernon, did you hear me? I was saying thank you to you. And I was asking if Mother Evelyn, this is my mother, everyone, for viewers who don't know that. If you have never watched this before, this is my mother, Evelyn Hughes. We call her Mother Evelyn. Mother Evelyn, if you would you share your thoughts on the verdict yesterday?
Yes, you can hear me, I hope.
Yes.
Great. Good evening, everyone. And it's so nice to see those of you that I know and the new ones too. Thank you. My day was very unusual, of course, yesterday, just like most people. I was hoping for that guilty verdict. I knew that there was a possibility that there could be an acquittal because it has happened in the past. But I was just really, really fortunate when I thought, well, this is different. This is the United States of America. So it was a day of anticipation and then satisfaction. I am hoping that this is a new beginning. We've wished for new beginnings lots of times, and many times they don't occur. But one thing that I'm hoping for is that all of us will work harder than we have in the past to help the police officers. Now, I know that sounds strange right now, but we do need police officers in our society. So when I say help them, let's try to figure out different ways to present ideas to police departments wherever you live. It's a situation where our input could make a difference, hopefully. So my feeling is yesterday was a very historic day, and it can be a new beginning. So let's think about how we can be helpful for our future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mother Evelyn. Okay, who wants to go next? I have several panelists on here with me tonight, so.
Vicky, I see Ewan raised his hand, but since I'm off mute, I can go really quick. In regards to, what others have said, I feel like that I can relate to a bit of that, specifically in regards to, when I found out, the verdict was coming, I was very intent on hearing it for myself. Because, a lot of times when things happen, Facebook can quickly share, their own opinion and their own commentary around it. And I was very keen on being able to hear it myself. And, I was definitely like on edge and like holding my breath, knowing what should happen and what could happen, could have been far apart. I was trying to brace myself for the worst, but hoping for the best, and hoping that, logical minds would prevail. So I was, very happy to hear the verdict. And at the same time, like I believe it was Dale who said accountability versus justice, right? Where I, I am glad for the verdict, but there is just so much more that needs to be done, that should have been done in the past, and it's unfortunate that it took, videotaping this 9+ minute incident, which clearly, explicitly showed, just the malice and the disregard for human life. It troubles me that it took that much for, us to be able to hold somebody accountable. One thing that I appreciated hearing from the comments from Erin, how she said George, and that reminded me of the humanity, the human being and the life that was taken so carelessly. And so I feel like there's still, for me at least, areas of this that I am still processing. And I do think that since over the last year, I'm the type of person who is very reflective. And then I just I feel like I don't need to be the spokesperson for anything. I'm reflective and I will support, but I'm not going to necessarily be vocal. And I found that this year I really needed to use my voice in the places and spaces where I had influence and had the opportunity to like engage in dialogue like this with other people. And one of those places is a church where I served. I was on staff there, and it was a predominantly white church. And when the incident happened, leadership was quiet for a couple of days, which troubled me significantly. And so I told my pastor, I don't know if I can be in church this week because I don't even know where leadership stands on this. And so we had a long conversation about it. And then he also invited me to speak if I wanted to, if I felt comfortable about, just how I was processing the situation. And I decided to do so. Again, that was very much outside of what I normally do. Normally, I'm like, I don't need to be the person to speak about this. But I felt at this particular time I did. I needed to use my voice. And ironically, so the Sunday when I was asked to come, and we were still, we were doing church online, but videotaping live in the sanctuary. So he asked me to come to the sanctuary and share what I felt led to share. And so I was driving to the church. I was speeding. I know I was speeding. And then I got pulled over, right? And I got pulled over. It was a white police officer. And it was broad daylight, and I was so afraid. I'm like, the climate that we're currently in, I know I was wrong. I know I was speeding, but the thoughts that ran through my mind in regards to like, yeah, I deserve a ticket, but what could escalate, and also making sure I pulled over in a place where people could see what was happening. And I had my phone ready just in case. And that is a horrible way to have to live, where a simple traffic stop could end in loss of life. And having that always in the forefront of your mind as a person of color is just a whole nother layer of trauma. And what does that do to your own, to your own being when you have to be on edge to the point of I might lose my life over a traffic stop. So all of that, I would say, I feel like there's still so much more to process. And I appreciate this conversation and this forum. And I also appreciate the fact that at least some of the spaces that I'm in, feeling more comfortable to engage the topic and being able to be vulnerable in a way that helps hopefully bring about awareness, change, and and some kind of proactive nature to this. So that's what I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. I feel the same way as you. You know, I fear every time I leave the home, at my house, that you know, if I get stopped, what's going to be the outcome? It's very frightening. I need to allow Attorney Ewan Allison. Can't even talk tonight. Attorney Ewan Allison. I need to let him talk. He is actually a criminal defense attorney, so I would love to hear what he has to say, specifically about yesterday's verdict and the trial and everything, and then any other thoughts that you have, Ewan. That would be great. And you're muted. Here you go. Okay, I know Ewan has to get off. He's not going to be on the whole time, so I definitely need to let him talk. So go ahead, Ewan.
Two things: my reaction to the verdict, and also a thought. I have a very general thought about racial trauma and how that resonated with something, and it's almost a personal experience for me. What I first sensed when I heard the verdict was relief. I was maybe 95% sure that there would have been a guilty verdict on at least one of the charges, because ordinarily when a jury is out that short, it's because it's either a very obvious case or they deadlock very early because the evidence is ambiguous. Here, the evidence was only mildly ambiguous if you look at the defense case in the right light under a full moon or something, but it seemed so obvious. And it wasn't just the video, it was all the other things that were, I'm sorry, Ms. Fraser's video. It was all the other things that were built up around it. So it was almost an open and shut case. So I was very relieved when it happened. And the reason I was relieved was because if there was an innocent verdict, it would have meant that there was something so seriously wrong with the way things are in the country that 12 people who could see the evidence right in front of them wouldn't see the evidence right in front of them. And there are people like that. And I'd hoped that there weren't people like that. And that was my biggest sense of relief. And another was that I would have expected a lot of people to be very angry. And when a lot of people are very angry in large numbers, bad things happen. And I didn't know whether there might have been some Proud Boys or Oath Keepers or some other whitey group ready to mix things up and agitate violence, maybe even start another riot as such. I didn't think it would start on its own, but I was just glad that there wouldn't be another riot. And so I was relieved that the verdict happened that happened. And I was also very sad because it shouldn't take this much evidence to have such an obvious result. And here we were uncertain. Crystal, I think you touched on this, and I think you said it better than I did. It should not, it should have been obvious, but then why did it have to be obvious for the one time that a really big case happens? The evidence has to be that obvious. And part of me also is I understand that sometimes big popular culture events happen like this, and this is probably a seminal moment in the grand zeitgeist of our country. Is now we have a sense when we hear George Floyd, we know that there's an obvious case where justice of a sort had been done, and for once, the white cop who killed the black person was going to go to prison for it. So you know that's a peg, sort of in terms of studying the milestones of people's the framework of people. That's one thing that you can hang one big idea on. And so now that's firmly established, and I'm relieved that the verdicts were what they were. The other thing was about racial trauma. My mother-in-law was a Holocaust survivor. She was very deeply traumatized by it. She didn't actually live in the camps, but she did have to completely change her identity from being Jewish to being Croatian. She had to start eating pork so that she could pretend that she was a Croat. She had to learn Serbo-Croat, and she was Austrian, so of course her accent was German. And they finessed that by pretending she'd been in a Swiss boarding school for a while. And then all these other tricks where they had to learn to be a completely different person just to survive. And I've heard of the phenomenon of code switching. I understand it only poorly, but that was my mother-in-law's life for 3 or 4 years, and it traumatized her. And recounting these experiences to her daughter traumatized her daughter. And I'm getting a taste of it myself. And there's actually some literature in the field of psychology about this phenomenon of Holocaust survivors living the trauma and passing the trauma on. And all I see as a parallel, there are people in this assemblage who have learned psychology better than I have, but that's a hypothesis maybe.
Thank you, Attorney Ellison. You said some things that I actually was reading about and thinking about earlier. I know that I was just thinking about how racial trauma is normally associated with people of color, but there are a lot of Caucasians who have experienced racial trauma and just traumas of various sorts. So I appreciate you sharing that story about you said it was that is your mother-in-law's experience. So I'm sorry that she has had that experience. I empathize with her. And also you were just talking about something I read about earlier, intergenerational impact of trauma where it's passed down.
If I may interject one bit, I'm starting to think maybe that's what all of your parents may have passed along with you too. I mean, now what happened to your parents and their interactions with you about it is probably adding to the cumulative aspect that was in the definition.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We can talk about that more. We can come back to that. I think I have 2 more people on.
This may be a good place for me to duck away. I'm sorry, Vicki. I've enjoyed being part of this discussion.
Oh no, that's fine. I knew you couldn't stay on the whole time. That's why I wanted to make sure that you were able to make some comments. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Evan.
Ewan, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Okay. So I still have. Let's see. Okay. Dr. Sexton, I'm coming to you. You're a therapist. I'm doing something strategic here. I wanted everybody to talk. You're last, but so Valerie Leonard is one of my Spelman sisters, one of my classmates. Actually, we graduated the same year. So welcome. I know you live in Chicago. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. If you would please share about your feelings about the verdict and just how you may have felt over the last year, that would be great.
Okay, sure. I have been traumatized. I think when I first heard of the incident, I verbalized that I felt traumatized, just hearing about it over and over again, watching that video over and over again. You couldn't turn for that video, but living in a city like Chicago, we see this stuff over and over and over again. And on the one hand, I'm starting to feel numb. I start to say desensitized, but that's not really the word. I think numb would probably be the better word. My knee-jerk reaction when I heard the verdict yesterday and watched different dynamics on the television was I was very relieved. I was thankful. I immediately thanked God for that verdict, because all too often people don't trust their eyes and they let the policemen off in spite of what they see on the videos. So I was very thankful to God. I was thankful for the jury. I was thankful for the defense team, thankful for Ben Crump and his team. I was thankful for those activists who would not turn this loose. You know, they were out there daily all over the world. I was thankful for the media for not letting us forget about it, even though it just repeated trauma for me. And for a minute, I thought that I could see things turning the corner. And then, you know, I hear of other cases the same day. So I don't know that we have turned the corner. I don't think we have, but I am savoring that one victory from yesterday. I think if it were possible that one time, it's possible again. Unfortunately, it's going to take more and more struggle, but I think we've seen what's possible. And I'm hopeful, in spite of what the statistics tell me, in spite of what my eyes are telling me, I am still hopeful. That's it.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Spelman sister. And just FYI, one of the Black males on here, Vernon Comer, is one of our Morehouse brothers. So just wanted you to know I'm ecstatic that Spelman sister and a Morehouse brother are here
Oh,
tonight.
awesome.
So, okay,
And,
so
and thank you for having me. I didn't say thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. And I hope you'll join us again.
I shall.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so everybody, I want to make sure. So everybody has gone. I saved Dr. Melissa Sexton for last. She is a therapist. She lives in Atlanta, and she has done work with racial reconciliation and some other areas, trauma and some other things for years. So I wanted her to hear what we all had to say first, and then take it away, Dr. Sexton. Whatever you want to share with us will be fantastic.
Okay. I did see Aronica here. Is that her?
She is one of the tech people, so that's why you can't see her.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for asking me to be on this tonight. This is something I have done a lot of thinking around, but haven't lived. So I'm not an expert by any means.
Okay, can you talk up just a little bit?
Yeah. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. I was saying, this is something I have been working with for many, many years in different ways and spaces, but it's not something I have personally lived. So I'm not an expert. But I am, well, I like the first thing that comes to mind is I'm a Christian. And, you know, that says it all for me. You have to walk with your brothers and sisters and siblings through this life and answer in the next answer to before the throne of God. So I'm a United Methodist minister as well. And originally 20 years ago, I worked at Grady Hospital when I was starting my life over after some other kinds of trauma. I was a research assistant for a PTSD study out of Florida Hall, which is the Fulton County Mental Health Clinic. And I was the frontline interviewer for people who had experienced a lot of racial trauma, but it had never been diagnosed or documented. And so it was my job to walk up and ask some DSM questionnaires to identify whether or not they had undiagnosed PTSD. And we did find that out. If you ever want to look up the papers, the 5 original papers for the Grady Trauma Project are by Carrie Ressler and Ann Schwartz as the PIs, and I was the assistant frontline person, walking up, cold call, asking people to tell me their trauma stories, which you could imagine was a difficult thing, a white face walking up to mostly African-American patient population and trying to make a connection. And what I always try to lead with was respect. And when I started asking people about their personal experience after going through all of these questions, at the end of my survey, I started asking, would any of your answers have been different if I were not white? And then you could just see everybody's face just change and shift, and like she gets it. She's knowing something different, and I really wasn't, but it just occurred to me that there was a barrier there that had to do with race and difference, and this integrity and dignity that comes with not talking to a white face about what is the most painful experiences of one's life if you're a brown or black person. And so those narratives led me down a road, and lots of study and licensures and whatnot. And most recently, I also am a HBCU alum, believe it or not, in a way, in that I was at Morehouse School of Medicine as one of Dr. Satcher's Health Policy Leadership Fellows most recently. And so all this is to say, I returned to a Project Grit team, studying not just traumatic experience, but resilience. And that's not to say that brown and black people have the burden of always having to be strong, and forgiving and overcome, and but that there is a quality that everyone else in the world can learn from people who have endured for generations, and developed narratives of resilience and strength-based skills, to not go out and just rage and live in fear constantly. There's something remarkable about that I think we all need to really pay attention to now. So it's not just what is the reaction to a verdict, but what is our response going to be now? When we are responding, we are agents of change. We're not caught in a fear-based, cortisol flooding, rational brain hijacking, constant re-traumatization, that is not only in our own bodies, but then encoded in our DNA from generation to generation. By the way, let me just throw this in. If you want to read one of the most brilliant pieces right now, it's by Resmaa. I want to say his name right. I hope I get it right. Resmaa Menakem or Menakem. I don't know. I've said that wrong. And if you want to listen to his interview with On Being with Kristen Tippett just recently, he did a brilliant interview there. And what he's done is a gift for all of us right now, because he's helped us to know that there is white body trauma, there is brown and black body trauma, and then there is police body trauma. And as we know, a lot of the policing body work, and forgive me to the gentleman who is on here, Dale, if I get this wrong, I hope you'll correct me, that there's a lot of trauma in that interface between trying to keep the white body people from getting all upset. They're out of their fear of the black body people who are afraid of their fear. So the policing has, since the days of slavery, really come out of policing brown and black bodies. And so to dismantle that structure is going to take, it's going to take a hell of a lot of work. It's going to take more than policy. It's going to take some group work. It's going to take some storytelling, some digging down deep, and some listening work. Anyway, I don't know if I've answered your question, Vicki, or offered the piece that you hoped I would offer, but I mean, this is good stuff that we're talking about. But I guess if I would reiterate anything, it would be we can't just react and get stuck in our feelings of fear and rage and some kind of hope that glosses over and buries. I mean, there's a trauma that's happened in every spot across America, every city, every space across America. It's mostly racialized trauma, and it gets glossed over and forgotten. We can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Sexton. I have a couple articles out, and one of them, this is let's see. This is What to Know About Racial Trauma, and it's by a Zon Willinez, and it was published or written on July 22nd, 2020. And Zon lists all these causes. It says any type of stress or anxiety around racial factors or treatment can trigger racial trauma. He gives all these examples: exposure to racial or ethnic stereotypes, fears about personal safety, witnessing members of a person's group receiving abuse, racist abuse of loved ones, direct exposure to racist abuse or discrimination. The last one is others not taking experiences of racism seriously. I mean, that's a whole lot of trauma right there. So
Yeah.
that I just read, what is that, 6 causes, and then
What happened? There she is. You went out. You're on mute. Can you unmute?
hopefully you all heard the 6. And then I was saying, to add to that, what Ewan was made reference to, the intergenerational things that are passed down. And I have to add what we all are traumatized by, the media coverage of these incidents. You know, that's a lot. I mean, that's 8 different causes of this trauma. And in this other article, this one is called, This is What Racial Trauma Does to the Body and Brain. This is by Jillian Wilson. It was published in, let's see, July 2020. Forgot to wear my glasses tonight. But, you know, it says, racial trauma creates irregular sleep patterns. It results in over or under consumption of food. Racial trauma is triggered through vicarious experiences too. Racial trauma causes an increase in the stress hormone cortisol.
Yeah.
It generates increased symptoms related to anxiety, depression, and hypervigilance. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's too much.
It's too much. That's also partly why we have so many health disparities for Black and brown body people.
Yeah.
Because of that constant tension and stress, and it is too much. There is also a report on racial trauma that Dr. Setcher wrote as a Surgeon General in 2001 that's worth looking up and reading. I posted it on my Facebook page a minute ago. And it's also, he called this out in 2001, you know, and as a way of saying to move past the stigmatization of mental health support and care. Because if you're going to be loaded up with all this trauma, you're going to have some other systems in place that help you know there's not something wrong with you as much as there is something right with you, and to override the harm that can come from that constant source of stress. You know, watching those videos over and over and over again. I think Ms. Leonards was talking about this. Was re-traumatizing, right? You don't master that material. That's material you don't want to keep having to endure. It just you use the word, I think, desensitization, but it will make us dissociate, you know, as well, where we rise up out of our body and just kind of hover over and not really land anywhere anymore. You really have to pace that so you don't injure your brain. There's no way to master that content. It's not content that you're supposed to master.
Well, you know, I can tell you and everybody, you know, I'm a law school graduate. I am a trained litigator. And so, you know, I actually wanted to become a prosecutor and prosecute high profile cases like the one we just, that just aired on TV. I only wanted to watch the opening statements, which I did, and then the closing arguments. I didn't watch the trial, all the witnesses and everything, other than what I saw on the news, the little snippets here and there. But I could not watch the trial. But when I saw the closing arguments on Monday, they showed so many video clips, and I had never seen, I don't think I'd ever seen the one where George Floyd was in the police car before they, pulled him out and he was on the ground, and he held up his hand like this. And that image is stuck in my mind because I just thought about all the people of color who would be like, he had this look of fear on his face. And that was like a kind of like a shield, but at the same time, that could have gotten him shot right then when he held up his hand. But the look of he had on his face, that is probably always going to stay with me. And that's just, video clips are just so powerful, and they stay in here. It's really traumatizing. It's really sad and unfortunate.
The flip of that, though, is his daughter being on the shoulders. I guess that was her uncle, right? Just to kind of help you reframe that a little bit. And she says, "My daddy changed the world." And that is a major statement to offset some of those images, because he did. I mean,
He did.
Again, not to be the martyr for the sake of white people like me to finally get it. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not reiterating what I think somebody said yesterday, which was really unfortunate. But the little girl is telling herself a different story, and that's honorable. That doesn't erase the trauma or the images that you were sharing, but just to kind of have that narrative alongside is useful, because it holds us. Somebody said that they're glad for accountability. I believe that was Dale. And but it holds us accountable, because you know what, the verdict is on all of us. It's on all of us.
It is.
What we do next is what's going to matter the most.
That's true. That's true. When I got to work, listen, I actually I thought about his daughter, and I looked online on YouTube, and I found that video of her, when she said, "My daddy changed the world." I posted that on Facebook, on my Facebook page, and then I said, "Yes, he did, Gianna," and that's her name. And I said, now it's up to us to keep that going. That's the initial change, and now it's up to us to keep that going. And I pray that we will do that. I posted a message similar to that with that video. So yeah, I want to remember that image as well. He did change the world. We just all need to work towards keeping that change fresh and applicable and just ongoing. So let me see if is Dell still on. Melissa, you said some things about the police, not brutality, I forgot the term, but I wanted to see if Dell wanted to respond since he's a former police officer. Dale, you're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, the thing that really connected to me, well, all of what Melissa said, but the piece about, I usually speak about it with in codes. There's this code that police officers function within. There's this code that I call it the myth of race is. There's this code that all of us were socialized into certain codes. And when I think about yeah, I'm trying not to be like, I don't want to think about it in intellectual terms. But if we're all kind of socializing these certain codes that we, in some ways, are forced to live within, like trauma is inevitable. It's going to happen. And so part of my work, particularly around race, is, I used to say, kind of redefining myself in the ways that feels true for me. But it's, I do a lot of work around meditation now. And it's more so about owning and claiming who I am and moving through the world in that way. And from my experience, that kind of allows me to befriend the trauma that I've been socialized into. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
And also, I mean, we're talking about race, the thing that I've been wanting to talk about around race is like, also I have to allow white people to be exactly who they are and claim who they are. And police officers, whoever they may be, whatever color they may be, whatever background they may be able to, and I feel like this is what I picked from what Melissa was saying. Police officers have to be able to claim exactly who they are as well. And that's the only place where I think transformation can take form, if we're completely, one of my favorite kind of life coaches says, we have to be like butt naked raw around who we are and what we experience in the world for transformation to take form. And when I talk about like racial trauma, that trauma has its roots inside of us not being honest and true about who we really are in the world. And so that place of honesty, truth, and authenticity is in my opinion, the only place that we can begin to, and I mean this on an individual, kind of communal, social, political level, all of that. That's the only place that we can even begin to transform the world.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you, Dr. Sexton. Thank you.
Can I
Go ahead.
Yeah. As people were talking, I think what's missing, and maybe this wasn't necessarily your intent in the conversation, I'm wondering what the heck was going on in Derek Chauvin's mind. You know, where was his humanity? What were his feelings? What would drive somebody to that level of depravity, or whatever the word is? You know, I would love to see the other side of this coin that we're talking about. You know, we're looking at it from the victim's perspective or being empathetic about it. What about the guilty people who inflict trauma on us? You know, I'm wondering what their stories are and whether they themselves have experienced trauma. You know,
That's a very good point. You know, I'm gonna let whoever answered make some comments too. But you know, one thing, that's something that also has bothered me. You know, throughout this whole thing, this whole almost year now, I keep looking at that video of Derek Chauvin on, you know, with his knee on George Floyd's neck, and his expression. I've said this so many times on social media, on various panel discussions, and even when I do my online ministry, his expression, he has this blank look, like he had no emotion at all. It's just, it's it's very disturbing. And you know, I know, being a law school graduate, I know that you know, he had his mask on. He was supposed to look a certain way. I mean, there's a strategy that attorneys use. So, you know, he didn't show any emotion. He was pretending like he was writing something, whether he was or not. You know, and at the end, his attorney had him take off his mask. He looked over at the jury some, and, you know, but even during those times, he had this look of nothingness. And it's just, like I said, for me, that is very disturbing. Does anybody else have a comment about that? Derek Chauvin, and how he showed no remorse to me. But
Well,
anybody else?
for me, I've been thinking about this. Like I said earlier, these videos we're seeing remind me, or I call them, and I've heard them called, modern day lynchings. I'm very into history. I recently watched 12 Years a Slave. I don't know why I watched that, because that made me angry, but I watched it because it's a true story, and I'm like, oh. But these during slavery, they would gather the slaves around to watch a lynching of their brother, or they lynched women too, or even their children, and to pretty much, I'm just gonna be raw and real, say, look at niggas, look at what I'm doing to this one. You disobey me, it's gonna happen to you. And so that's trauma right there. I think about, I empathize, because I have patients of all different races, and I hear all different stories from my patients, whether white, black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Everybody has trauma. But I have a heart for my people. And oh my God, the mess we've been through. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. And it seems like, and certainly on Facebook, I'm in Facebook jail right now because I let my emotions get to me, and I said some things on Facebook, and Zuckerberg put me in jail. That's fine. But because certain people, which I will just say it, even some black people too, but mostly white people, are like, well, just get over it. Just come on, oh, I didn't do that, or that was back then. But I'm like, baby, I don't care if you didn't do it. It's in your bloodline. I'm just gonna be straight up. Your ancestors did it. Now, yes, you didn't do it, and yes, I'm not a slave, but I can trace it back. I had genealogies. I have older people. Well, a lot of my grandparents have passed on, but I have a great aunt that's still living. She'll be 90 this year. We can trace it back to my great grandfather, which was a slave, and he ran away. He was an ex-slave. He was like, I'm not doing this crap. he ran away, so it's in my bloodline. But when I saw Derek's face, it automatically reminded me of a slave master. Like, see what I'm doing to this nigga? I'll do it to you if you cross me. And it causes trauma. Today, for example, I'm driving and I think one of my brake lights is out. I swear I got it fixed, but I think it's out. The police are behind me. They didn't pull me over or anything, but I'm automatically shaken. Like, oh my God. And it was a white guy too. And I'm like, oh God, I hope he doesn't pull me over. He passed me and everything. But it's, even as Black females, we have this fear. I think, I will say this. A lot of focus is on the Black male, but it happens to Black women too. It happens to us. And when it happens to our Black men, it happens to us as well. We have We have feelings. We fear for our Black men. We fear for ourselves. Example, the young girl that just got shot. She's 15 or 16 years old. Oh my God. Why would you do that? You took someone else's child. I'm going to say this, then I'm going to be quiet. In 12 years, I'm very passionate about this stuff. In 12 years a slave, this white man bought a mother and her children. And he brought the young boy, first of all, he separated the mother from her children. And the children were devastated. Oh my God, you're taking my mom away from me. But what he called the young boy, he called him a beast. He said, look at this beast. And that's how they see our children. They see them as, first of all, grown-ups. This 7-year-old or this 12-year-old, that's an adult. No, they're not. They're children. So why is it that young Billy is a little boy, but Devontae, or I'm just coming up with names, is a grown man and he's 7? I think about those things. Or Lakeisha or Monica or whatever. Oh, that's a grown woman. Look at her. You know, she's a child. These are our babies. These are our children. And you treat them differently than Becky. And Becky is probably a little more wilder than Lakeisha. Let's just be honest. So, but this has been going on since slavery. And they've been treating our children, and it's been going on through generation through generation through generation. I was raised by my grandparents, and they grew up in the South. And the stories they told me, oh God, the stuff they've been through. But they never taught me to hate another race. They never taught me that. But they still had trauma. And we have to understand that it's gone through centuries. This is nothing new. Our ancestors went through this. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you, Erin, for sharing that. We have about 12 minutes left. And, Liddell touched on some things. I was going to shift the conversation to coping with racial trauma so we can talk about that more. So Liddell talked about something. I have this article that I read earlier. It's called Coping with Racial Trauma. And it was published by the Department of Psychology, Franklin College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Georgia. And I'm not sure the year. I'll find that in a second, hopefully. But anyway, like I said, Liddell touched on some of this, but okay, the first one says engage in prayer, mindfulness, spiritual practices, and use of mantras. Practice self-care by engaging in activities that you enjoy and make you happy. Learn to be aware and recognize the symptoms of racial trauma like fatigue, anxiety, depression, difficulty sleeping. Identify similar ways to cope with these symptoms. Make a list of situations, people, or places that trigger your symptoms of trauma and make a similar list of ways to cope for each of these situations, people, or places. Recognize when you are not able to perform optimally because of the above symptoms and rest if you are able. Role play how to respond to negative racial encounters with trusted people in your network, and then engage in activism. Feeling empowered involves participating in actions to solve difficulties. Let's see, it says, agency and self-advocacy are associated with leadership, school engagement, self-esteem, and pro-social behaviors. Do a self-check and ask yourself if you need help or someone to talk to. These are some suggestions in this article. I still don't see the year. If I find it, I will let everybody know. I think it's 2021, but again, I'll try to find it. Anyone want to comment on coping mechanisms? I just read some from this article, but does anybody want to comment on those things or say anything else? Trying to make sure everybody has talked to at least once, but
Mhm.
I was trying to give some of the people who have only talked once a chance to speak again.
Well, Vicki, it's Crystal. What I might say is, I mean, I found that very helpful, that list. And I've been able to kind of like almost say, oh, okay, I've done that, or oh, I can integrate that into my own practice. I do think it is something that Dale mentioned in regards to like truth telling and being able to like kind of identify, name it, and then own it in whatever way is necessary, or, you know, kind of like discard it if it's something that needs to be discarded. But I think what's been helpful for me over the last year specifically is being more aware of like what is happening in my body and being able to say, oh, this like pain in my chest, like it's not some random thing that's happening. It's something as a response to what's happening in the environment around me, and being able to then, you know, kind of work through it that way. Or, you know, why am I feeling this unease about certain things? Like my nephew, he's 14. Why do I feel unease about him going certain places or doing certain things? And being able to like figure that out within myself, and then also having a conversation with him around, you know, in appropriate ways but the conversation with him around making sure that he's prepared for these instances that he's going through, versus me like holding this trauma inside. So I do appreciate like being able to kind of understand the feelings, naming them, and then also being able to identify places in the past, whether it's incidences, even experiences, whether they were firsthand or secondhand, and being able to also say, oh, okay, I see how they're connected. And I think that's been helpful too.
Thank you, Crystal. And everybody, Crystal is also a minister.
I would just add to that list that Crystal said is just to remember to breathe. I mean, getting some oxygen into your blood will help release a lot of the cortisol and some of the other kinds of stress hormones, and drinking water. I mean, this sounds kind of simple, and I'm not trying to be over simple or say something that you don't already know, but I often don't breathe when I get into that fight or freeze moment, like my breath gets real shallow and I get tense. But if I can literally override that fear response and that or that rage response and actually breathe, that helps keep my body with oxygenated blood. And that if you can hang in a moment where you're triggered either by a memory or an event where you're safe, you know, and your brain's trying to tell you you may not be safe, if you can hang in for 30 minutes is what it takes to kind of calm everything down.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Sexton. Vernon, do you have any comments at this time? It's we have about 6 minutes left. I wanted to call on Vernon and then my mother, and then I'll close it out. Well, after my mother, I might have a couple other people talk if we have a few more minutes. But anyway, Vernon, do you have any comments at this time?
Yeah, just sort of listening and taking in what everybody's saying. And all that stuff is good and great. But sort of along the lines of what Dale said, sometimes you may, and it's been cathartic for me once in a blue moon to snap, to simply let it happen. Fortunately or unfortunately, I've had a few incidents through playing high school and college football at Morehouse, where it's like when we played a certain team in Carrollton, in West Georgia. But it's like games going on, and you know, I ran past a guy and he called me a nigger, and I was like, okay, I didn't hear it, so I'm gonna let it slide this time. And it happened again, and something snapped in me. Yes, I got put out of the game. He got put out of the game. But that was great satisfaction for what I did to him. And I bet he thought hard again after that game about ever uttering the N word, calling somebody a nigger. And I was even willing to, coach, well, I went through that in high school. I shouldn't have to put up with it as a collegiate ball player. And we're playing a sport, and we're still, it's 1982, and we're still having to deal with that. I mean, we're still dealing with it now, but even back then it was like, I went through this in high school, getting spat on, getting cleated, in skirmishes and getting punched, and referees not calling penalties, and us losing because it's like, okay, we're scoring touchdowns and they're like, oh, there's a penalty. Like, okay. So yeah, sometimes you do have to just, to let it out as opposed to keeping it in. I was a migraine sufferer most of my life. I've been a migraine sufferer, but part of what I learned in terms of with the racial stuff, sometimes I needed to say something or do something. Had a couple of times with work situations, I had to go to EEO. And, though it wasn't the best outcome, because EEO in the late 80s, early 90s was not the most, they were sort of toothless, but yet and still, and I, I frankly had to stand on my own. People that say, oh, we got your back, man, we got your back, that looked like you and me didn't have my back, because they feared, okay, well, we may get fired or whatever, or they may do the stuff to us like they're doing to you. But, it sometimes you gotta fight. You can't fight every battle, but sometimes you gotta battle.
Okay, thank you, Vernon. Thank you for sharing.
Can't hear you.
Thank you, Vernon. Before we go to my mother and then I close it out, I think, Dale, did you have a comment? I think someone, Crystal said you might have had your hand up or something. Did you have a comment to what somebody was saying, maybe what Vernon said or somebody?
Yeah, I feel like we don't have enough time. There was this piece around, I forgot who asked it, about the kind of psychology of the police officer. And I have no idea what the hell the officer was thinking, but the part that I do know that is clear to me. I was talking a little bit earlier about codes, and I think all of us have particular codes that we were taught. I would never ever get into debate about like if this officer was racist or not. I believe he is. But also I think part of it that I want to highlight is what I've heard in every profession. And it's been 10 plus years since I've been in law enforcement. And I've done other things, is I'm just doing my job. There is something about that phrasing. I'm just doing my job, even if it's microaggressions, the ways that we we bypass and disregard individuals because I'm doing my job, I think speaks to what also may have been happening for him in that context. I'm just doing my job. So he was standing there surrounded by colleagues. And none of his colleagues said anything to him, from my knowledge. And they believed that he was doing his job as well. So there's something inside of, I think, these codes that we live in that also perpetuate injustice or oppression, even if it's in micro ways, that I think speaks to what was happening at that moment as well. I think it gives me light into what was happening for that police officer as well. I don't know if that's helpful to anyone, but it's helpful to me to sit with, so I can decide. Well, one, so I can sit with how that shit shows up in me as an individual, so I can decide to do something else that doesn't function that way.
Right, right. Dr. Sexton, do you want to respond to anything Del said? No? Okay, okay. Before I go to my mother, Valerie, do you have any closing comments or anything?
It's interesting to listen to us talk about this stuff in 2021. I can remember being in corporate America in the 80s, dealing with a lot of this stuff in more, I guess, subtle ways. And people told me I was imagining things, you know, and I was out there on a limb all by myself, you know, fighting the fight by myself. So it was refreshing. Vernon, I don't relish what you went through, but I could identify with what you were talking about. And the good thing is, at least now I know I wasn't imagining things. You know, there are other people who are willing to talk about it and own it. And I think that's healthy, even though we're still hurting.
Thank you for that, Valerie. I mean, I have, you know, I'm in ministry, and yet I have a fear every day of getting stopped by a police officer. So I'm still trying to work through that. I'm still, you know, I trust God. I just don't trust people. So I'm trying to work through that. Let's see. Anybody else before I go to my mother? I mean, it's fine. We're 3 minutes over. That's fine. I think we started a few minutes later. So anybody else have any closing comments? Okay, Mother Evelyn.
Thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful to hear everyone tonight and think about what you've said. It's been educational for me. I'm older, of course. I just think that we will absolutely have to work on problems that are very, very much alive. So we've been traumatized, of course, all of our lives in different ways and so forth. So one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that our ancestors went through a lot and they fought. And we will have to fight all of our lives. That's just how it is. So we can see results many, many times. Sometimes we fail, but that doesn't mean that we just lie down and give up. So we will have to gain our strength and move along, but remember that we will have to continue to fight.
Thank you, Mother Evelyn. It's always a pleasure to have my mother on here with us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all panelists. Thank you to my tech person, Crystal Speed, who is usually behind the scenes. Every once in a while, she wants to come out and talk to us, talk with us. So she's on tonight. Thank you, everyone. Panelists, if you haven't already, please share this live stream video on your Facebook pages. I know we've started talking live on the Embracing Diversity Facebook page, but please share to your personal pages. And viewers, if you would please share this to your personal pages. We want people to hear us talking, to see us. You see different ethnicities, different genders, different religious beliefs here, different generations. We want you all to, and as many people as possible, to see us dialoguing. And what we've talked about tonight is something that everybody needs to hear about and just reflect on. I started out with the question, is racial trauma real? And you have heard tonight, we have dialogued for over 90 minutes. And you should know by now that racial trauma is real. A lot of us have experienced it and still are experiencing it. And it's just time for us to do something about it so that we don't feel this way. Hopefully, racial incidents will lessen or cease. And until they do, if we could figure out how to just deal with the racial trauma and cope with it, that would be a great thing. Thank you all for watching tonight. Again, I thank you to all panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that people have learned a lot and again, reflected on some things. Take care. Bye.